Chapter 41 Goodbye, Konoha, please read and vote for me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content. The third Hokage's funeral was held on a day drenched in heavy rain. Ninjas clad in black stood in silence beneath the Hokage rock. Naruto looked up at the four faces carved into the cliff, then down at the photo of Sarutobi Hiruzen on the altar. The third Hokage is dead, he said quietly, and I think I'm going to leave Konoha, too. In the oppressive silence, his words seemed to boom, heads turned, eyes widened in disbelief. Sasuke and Sakura were clearly stunned. Karen, however, seemed to have anticipated this. She moved closer, standing firmly behind Naruto. Naruto! Kakashi said, his voice low, reaching out to stop him. Naruto stepped back, met his gaze, and offered a bright, sad smile. I've been thinking about this for a while now, but it wasn't until recently that I made up my mind. He seemed to see the specter of death again. I have more important things to do now than to stay here as a ninja. Some reacted sharply. Are you defecting? Kurenai, a newly promoted jonin, clearly didn't know about Naruto's parentage. Those who knew his true identity reacted even more strongly. Instantly, Umbu surrounded the rooftop, hands forming seals, chakra gathering, ready for a fight. In the distance, several pulses of chakra flickered erratically. Don't say that, Naruto said to Kurenai, his eyes sweeping over the others. A slight smile played on his lips. I was never accepted as part of this place, so how can I betray it? Kurenai was speechless. Sakura cried out, but things have changed. Naruto, I don't hate you anymore. You're a good teammate. People are starting to see you differently. Naruto shook his head, cutting her off. Do you know what the third Hokage wanted to say to me before he died? Sakura's mouth hung open. How could she know? She hadn't been there. I'm sorry, Naruto said, answering his own question. Then, he asked another, but do you know why he said that? He raised his head, looking at the assembled ninjas. Some already knew the answer. Kakashi looked down. Shiranui Genma avoided his gaze. Shikamaru and his father turned away. Many unfamiliar faces were there, too. Sakura, the third Hokage knew, and my father knew. Naruto turned to face the crowd, his back to the Hokage rock. He smiled slightly and raised a hand. I am the son of the fourth Hokage. The last head carved on the mountain seemed to bow slightly, looking down at him. The calmly spoken words sent ripples of shock through those who didn't know. Sakura was incredulous. Sasuke stared, jaw dropped. Kurenai gasped, how could he be the son of the fourth Hokage? Someone glanced surreptitiously at the child cradled in Iruka's arms. The Hokage's grandson. Then back at Naruto. The Hokage's son. Their childhoods, so intertwined yet so different, represented two opposing paths. Those who avoided his gaze, consumed by guilt, remained silent. Naruto, Jiraiya appeared instantly, his voice low, this is Konoha's fault. Naruto interrupted him. The third Hokage already apologized. More words are pointless. Those who sacrifice for the village are called heroes, but I don't accept the apology. He took Karen's hand. Chakra surged, filling the air. He stepped forward, walking on invisible steps. The hearts of the assembled ninjas tightened. Manipulating chakra to walk on air. The control was incredible. Many who hadn't followed Naruto's progress were astonished. Was the Nine-tailed Jinchuriki already this powerful? It had only been 3 months since he graduated from the academy. Master Jiraiya, you're a great guy, and it's been fun hanging out. And Kakashi-sensei, Naruto turned to give him a complicated look. Honestly, when I first met you and learned you were my father's student, I was really happy. I thought I'd get special treatment. But it seemed like you liked Sasuke more. Kakashi said nothing, staring in a daze at the blonde boy rising into the sky. Naruto put his hand on the hilt of his sword, a wave of emotion washing over him. It feels like Konoha is suddenly being really nice to me, and I'm suddenly getting a lot of attention. But the times I needed that kindness and attention most were before I was 6, and again before I graduated from the Ninja Academy. Now, I can take care of myself and others. Master Jiraiya, Kakashi-sensei, you're both good people, but it's a little late. Just like the third Hokage's apology, it's too late. Jiraiya stared at the statue of the fourth Hokage, speechless. As a Jinchuriki, you've received some of the best treatment possible, a ninja said. The third Hokage was very lenient with you. Naruto looked at him, a stranger. He smiled gently. There are a lot of people in the world who are far unluckier than me. I went to see Gaara recently. As a Jinchuriki, I definitely had it better. At least I could study in the academy like a normal kid, even if I was excluded. Sasuke's suffering is far greater than mine. Iruka-sensei's misfortune is no less than my own. But does that mean I should ignore my own misfortune just because others have it worse? Isn't that a little unfair? I just want to leave the misfortune behind and find my own happiness. Jiraiya took a deep breath, looking away from the statue. Naruto, what are you going to do after you leave the village? If you're just leaving for the sake of leaving. I was a little lost before, but now I have a goal, Naruto said, smiling brightly with determination. I want to find my parents. Jiraiya was confused. Find his parents? Two dead people. Naruto suddenly turned his head, looking into the distance. Restless chakra pulsed there, poised to strike. Just let me go, okay? Even though I don't like it here very much, this is where my parents lived and protected, their home. I don't want to destroy their home. Silence descended, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Shikamaru's father stepped forward, making a seal. In the name of Nara Shikaku, leader of the senior ninja team, I approve Uzumaki Naruto's departure from the village. Jiraiya jumped up, summoning a giant toad, blocking the restless chakra, and mirroring the action. In the name of Jiraiya, the toad sage of the three Sannin, I support Uzumaki Naruto. After a moment, Kakashi stood up too. In the name of Kakashi, the senior ninja who leads Team 7, I support Uzumaki Naruto. They couldn't stop him. He was a mature and powerful ninja. It was better to let him go and preserve the peace, rather than let Konoha's image in his heart sour even further. Supporting Naruto and letting him travel was better than a battle breaking out and the Jinchuriki betraying the village. Konoha couldn't withstand another wave of destruction like Orochimaru's. Naruto smiled, turning to face the statue of the fourth Hokage. He took his hand off the hilt of his sword, removed his Konoha forehead protector from his left arm, and tossed it gently. It floated down to Iruka like a leaf. Iruka-sensei, thank you. You're my favorite person in Konoha. You're a great teacher and a great person. I wish there were more people like you. Please keep this for me. Iruka reached out and caught the forehead protector, lost in thought. Catching Naruto's heavy past. Chapter 42 Two Voices, please read and vote. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 42, Two Voices, seeking to read seeking monthly votes. Inside the Hokage building. You're coddling the Jinchuriki too much, Mito-Kato-en commented, watching the rain outside. Now isn't the time for him to be wandering off. The village needs every bit of strength it can get. Shikaku Nara shook his head. I know, but my hands were tied. And at that point. If I hadn't spoken up, we would have had a full-blown fight on our hands. It wasn't just Naruto. Even he could feel those hostile chakras zeroing in. Mito-Kato-en and Utatane Koharu, the village's two senior advisors, weren't blaming Shikaku. Their gaze was fixed on Jiraiya. If anyone could have stopped it then, it was undoubtedly the Toad Sage. He can fly, Jiraiya stated simply. Flying was an ability beyond a ninja's usual skill set, a convenient and plausible excuse. Mito-Kato-en shook his head. I don't buy that you were helpless to prevent it. Jiraiya remained silent. An Umbu operative appeared instantly. Two unidentified ninjas were found pinned to the village gate with kunai, he reported, his voice tense. The Jinchuriki, Naruto Uzumaki, is suspected. With the Konoha crush still fresh in everyone's minds, this was the last thing they needed. Deal with the bodies, Utatane Koharu said after a moment, waving her hand dismissively. The Umbu was taken aback. then, he lowered his head, replied, "Yes, ma'am," and vanished. "Lucky for us, the fourth Hokage saved the village's hide again," Jiraiya said flatly. "Lucky he still had some sense. The guys he sent out weren't wearing Konoha headbands." "Maybe Naruto leaving the village is for the best," Udatane Koharu said. "Let's table this issue and give him a warning. Let's discuss something more pressing. We need a trustworthy and powerful leader. We need a fifth Hokage." Jiraiya. Jiraiya immediately raised a hand, cutting her off. "Sorry, but I'm going to have to decline." Mito Kato-en frowned. "The village needs you now more than ever." "I'm not cut out for the job," Jiraiya said firmly. "I'm better suited to traveling around and gathering intel. Besides, you guys wouldn't be comfortable with Naruto out there on his own. I'll keep an eye on him, too. Maybe there's still a chance to bring him back." Naruto's words had struck a nerve. "It's too late." Those words carried a lot of weight, if I hadn't given up and left the village, would things be different? Minato and Kushina would still be alive, Naruto would have been looked after, but there's no point in dwelling on that now. The past taught him a painful lesson, it also made him determined not to abandon anyone ever again. He was worried about Naruto. What did he mean by "I want to find my parents"? "They're dead, where else can you look?" The two advisors were silent. Jinchuriki, what a headache, a small town in the land of fire, not far from Konoha, with a noticeable ninja presence, the economy was thriving, and the hotels were comfortable. "Where to next?" Karen asked, sitting beside Naruto, following his gaze to the katana on his lap, not the dark red one, the one he almost never used. "Whirlpool Country," Naruto said softly. "I want to see the ruins of Uzushio village." "Okay," Karen replied, not pressing him further, sensing his need for space. Whatever was going on, now was a crucial moment for him. Naruto stared at Asada. This was his second Zanpakuto, but he hadn't learned its name yet, preventing him from releasing it, but just now, after facing his inner turmoil and admitting he wanted to leave Konoha, a powerful call echoed from within the blade. It wanted to tell him its name, but the sword's call was a confusing mix of two voices. One was strong and gentle. The other, though faint, felt familiar, their voices intertwined, the former dominating the latter, and the latter disrupting the former, creating a sense of unity and separation. Why was this happening? Naruto was puzzled. He'd never heard of anything like it. Was there a reason it was refusing to reveal its true name? Were both his swords like this? He entered Blade Zen and tried to communicate with the sword, but he was only met with the same two conflicting voices, the strong one gentle, the weak one insistent. Naruto opened his eyes. He was greeted by Shiba Kaien's signature goofy grin. Back in the Soul Society, he felt a wave of relief. "Naruto, you're really burning the candle at both ends," Shiba Kaien said, grinning. "The Spiritual Arts Academy sent you an invitation to speak at the freshman orientation ceremony." Naruto was surprised. "Me? Isn't that usually a vice-captain's job?" Shiba Kaien reached out and ruffled Naruto's hair. "What's the difference between you and a vice-captain, kid? Knowing you're the third seat puts a lot of pressure on me. And this year, there's another prodigy in the Spiritual Arts Academy. He's not quite as gifted as you, but he has a spiritual power level of 6 when he enrolled. Headmaster Bo Gang is hoping you'll be an example and encourage him." Naruto nodded, smiled, and agreed. "Sure, I'll go." He stood up. "When is it?" Shiba Kaien replied, "A week from now." Naruto nodded and started to walk away. "Thanks, Brother Kaien. I'm going to the Research and Development Department to see Captain Urahara." "Go on, get going," Shiba Kaien waved. At the Research and Development Department, down in the underground captain's office, Urahara Kisuke was staring intensely at the knowledge of sealing techniques Naruto had written down. The lazy air around him vanished, his eyes glowing with excitement. "This is incredible. So that's how it works. My research was heading in the wrong direction. I need to start with the body." "Naruto, where did you get this knowledge?" Naruto looked up, grinned, and replied, "That's a secret, Captain Urahara." "Oh, right," Urahara Kisuke scratched his head. Well, it doesn't matter where it came from. This stuff is gold. I've already got a ton of ideas for improving my old techniques. That sword of yours is interesting. He didn't wait for Naruto to finish writing. As soon as he finished the last stroke, Urahara snatched the papers, shoving Naruto aside so he could start his research. Before you get too carried away, Captain Urahara, could you come with me to the 4th Division? Naruto took the paper from Urahara and placed it on the table. There seems to be a problem with my sword. Urahara Kisuke instinctively looked at Kyubi. But he realized the problem probably concerned his other sword. His expression turned serious. They went to the 4th Division headquarters, where Unohana Retsu frowned after hearing Naruto's description. 2 voices in 1 sword? Unohana wondered. That sounds like 2 swords, but you've obviously only released 1. Could it be 3 swords in 1? Urahara Kisuke scratched his head. If that's the case, even though it's never happened before, it'd be pretty cool. Naruto shook his head and explained more clearly. Although there are 2 voices, they seem like they're one and the same. It's not that clear-cut. I just can't figure out which one is the real one. Urahara Kisuke picked up on the emphasis in Naruto's description, not on name, but on it. Thanks to book friend tale number 8682 for the reward, thanks to Master Jyotian Taihao Miaoying for the 10,000 rewards. Chapter 43, Snake and Fox, please read and vote. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Urahara Kisuke pondered, then cautiously suggested, could it be a symbiotic state, like 2 sides of the same coin? Both Unohana and Naruto turned to him. He held out his hand, using it to illustrate his idea. Think of it like this. This side facing up is yang. The opposite side facing down is yin. Naruto's situation might not be as directly conflicting, but it could be similar. 1 body, 2 completely different aspects of power. Unohana Retsu nodded thoughtfully, a smile playing on her lips. Typical of Captain Urahara, that makes perfect sense. Naruto glanced down at Shienda. 2 sides in 1 body, 2 conflicting paths within his own heart. However, given how unique Naruto is, there might be another factor. Unohana Retsu shifted the conversation slightly. During my examination, I noticed some unusual anomalies. I initially attributed them to the other sword. But now, it seems there may be a power within you, in addition to the 9 tails, that doesn't entirely belong to you. That could be one side of those twins. Naruto looked up at Unohana Retsu, surprised by her gentle, smiling expression, a power within him, besides the 9 tails, that wasn't his own. This is just a theory that came to mind after Captain Urahara's insights, Unohana said softly. Naruto gripped his sword. So, me. Don't worry, and don't fight it, Unohana reassured him. It's all a part of your power. Once you clearly hear both voices, whichever you choose, it won't be a mistake. The Zanpakuto is a reflection of your soul. Naruto nodded. Okay, thank you, Captain Unohana. Let's run another quick check, Unohana Retsu smiled. Just to confirm your current status. The results were in quickly. Naruto was healthy, and his spiritual power had grown, climbing from the 5th level to the 4th. The potential second force remained elusive, but upon closer inspection, Unohana Retsu had detected a trace. Unlike the Kyubi, which possessed a soul and intelligence sealed within his body, this subtle power lacked any self-awareness. It was pure energy, mixed with Naruto's own, making it nearly impossible to distinguish. With these 2 seasoned veterans confirming the situation, Naruto felt relieved. After agreeing to study healing arts with Unohana Retsu for 3 days a month, he and Urahara Kisuke took their leave. Back at the 13th Division headquarters, Naruto resumed his sword meditation, hoping to clearly hear the 2 voices soon. Urahara Kisuke delved into his research. The knowledge of these sealing arts fascinated him. It was a new and completely different field. A week later, at the Siriidii Spiritual Arts Academy. Naruto, long time no see. How Gang greeted him personally. Naruto scratched his head. Dean Bogan, you don't need to be so formal with me. You're my teacher. How Gang grinned. Naruto, you should get used to your current position. You're only a third seat now, but you'll be a captain someday. Come on, I'll show you the top students who joined the academy this year. Those from Rukongai are truly exceptional. He led the way, with Naruto following casually behind. Inside the gymnasium, How Gang pointed. They're over there. Naruto looked and was surprised. Two people stood there, one was a pale-haired boy, taller than him, the other was an old friend, Aizen Sosuke. Why are you here, Lieutenant Aizen? Naruto greeted him. Aizen smiled warmly. I heard that Dean How Gang invited you, Naruto. I figured this might be your first time dealing with something like this, and I was a bit worried, so I asked Minging to come along. Naruto smiled sheepishly. I was a little nervous at first, but seeing you, Sosuke, I immediately felt at ease. He tilted his head. Is this the rising star of this year's academy? That the silver-haired boy bowed respectfully to Naruto. Yes, third seat Uzumaki. I'm Ikamaru Jin, a new student this year. I look forward to your guidance. Jin. He seems pretty sharp, Naruto observed. He had an innocent-looking face, he was always smiling, his eyes squinting, but there was an underlying sinister vibe. The first thing that came to Naruto's mind was Orochimaru. Maybe this guy was also a venomous snake. How Gang beamed. He was at a 6th level spiritual power when he joined. What's most impressive is that he works as hard as you do, Naruto. But his physical talent isn't as good as yours. Our teachers constantly have to remind him to take a break. Really? Geniuses overworking themselves could be a blessing and a curse. Naruto smiled, extending his hand and channeling his power. Ikamaru Jin instinctively glanced at Aizen, who simply smiled and didn't object. A wave of gentle energy washed over him. The tiredness, pain, and scars slowly faded under this gentle power. You really do push yourself, Naruto said, sensing his condition. You have a lot of injuries. Don't rush things. We have plenty of time to take it easy. These were the words Captain Unohana had spoken to him. Now, they seemed perfect for this silver-haired boy. Ikamaru Jin was stunned, bowing respectfully. Thank you, third seed Uzumaki. What a thoughtful response, Aizen murmured, narrowing his eyes as he recalled the spiritual pressure. Even the senior officers of the 4th Division might not be as good as Naruto. Naruto shook his head. No, I still have a long way to go. Ikamaru Jin stared at Naruto, then at Aizen Sosuke. These two were quite similar, yet so different. The opening ceremony began soon after. Naruto went on stage to speak. He stumbled a bit at first, but quickly found his rhythm. He shared stories from his time at the Mouse Spiritual Academy and his days in the 13th Division. Next up was Aizen Sosuke. He was a natural speaker, expanding on Naruto's points and inspiring the audience. Finally, Aizen raised his hand to the hilt of his sword. Every time I see new students, I think back to my days at the Mouse Spiritual Academy. Back then, I always looked forward to achieving Shirkai and becoming a true Soul Reaper. I'm sure you all feel the same way. Showing my blade wouldn't be appropriate here, Aizen continued. So, let me show you mine. He slowly drew his sword, chanting in a low voice. Shatter, Kyoka Suigetsu. Mist poured from the blade, slowly swirling and engulfing the room. The space seemed distorted. Some people noticed that those around them seemed to shift positions. Naruto was also affected. Iki Tanuka seemed to have switched from his left to his right. This was the power of Kyoka Suigetsu. The sword's ability was to manipulate the reflection of the mist and water to create illusions, confusing the enemy. This wasn't Naruto's first time seeing Kyoka Suigetsu in its Shirkai form, but he still had to admit, it was a beautiful sword. The nine tails shifted uncomfortably, it sensed a threatening aura, the same aura it felt on the day Naruto arrived in this world. Thanks to Atmos, one hammer kills two. Mere bamboo, staying up all night, and Kazka for the gifts. Chapter 44, The Sword Unsheathed. Please read and collect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 44, The Sword Unsheathed. Every student at the Shino Academy looks up to Aizen Sosuke, but Uzumaki Naruto is the one everyone wants to be. Who wouldn't want to be the brightest, most dazzling prodigy in the Godai 13? But, becoming a genius takes more than just wanting it. Year later, Jin Ikimara graduated and joined the 5th Division. Just like Naruto, he was given a high-ranking position right away, but nobody compared Jin Ikimara to Naruto. Jin Ikimara was compared to Byakuya Kuchiki, who joined the 6th Division the same year and also became a senior officer. The future heir to the prestigious Kuchiki family was another bright new star. They had comparable talent, similar ages, and the same starting point. As for Naruto, he was already considered on a whole other level. Everyone was wondering when this genius would become a full-fledged captain. 10 years. 12 Division, underground training grounds. Naruto scrambled out of a deep crater, looking a little worse for wear. Yoruchi, holding her arm where he'd struck her, grinned. That's some power you've got there. Seven-tailed transformation is really something. But I lose control too easily, Naruto said, shaking his head as he deactivated the form. Over the past year, Urahara Kisuke and Tensai Tsukabashi, the head of the Ghost Path group, had been intensely researching the sealing technique. With huge success, they'd added a whole new layer to the original seal, letting Naruto jump from 4-tailed transformation to 7-tailed. However, the 7-tailed transformation wasn't fully mastered yet. It had a time limit. Staying in that form for too long would still lead to him being consumed by the beast. It's still pretty good, Yoruchi said, smiling. You actually managed to hurt me. Give it a few years, and I'll be calling you Captain Uzumaki. Naruto sighed, exasperated. Come on, Yoruchi. Urahara Kisuke threw his arms up in the air. All right. Data collection complete. But compared to last time, looks like nothing has changed. Tensai stared at the screen, nodding solemnly. I'm plenty happy with a year's worth of progress, Naruto said, smiling. Your research is incredible, Captain Urahara. Haha, of course. Urahara Kisuke was in his element. But I'm going to have to put your research on hold for a while. He scratched his head, looking troubled. There are some tricky things I need to take care of. Naruto asked, you mean the disappearances in Rukongai? Urahara Kisuke nodded. Over the past month, a lot of residents had gone missing in Rukongai. The population had shrunk to nearly a whole district's worth. Is there something affecting their lifespan? Naruto wondered. Souls, like living beings, have lifespans. Souls with spiritual power tend to live longer. Ordinary souls without it usually don't live any longer than humans. Once they can't maintain their form anymore, they break down into spirit particles and dissipate. A complete end. In a sense, Yoruchi added, this is more than just that. The Captain Commander is taking it very seriously. The whole 9th Division's been deployed, and even the captain's down there. At first, I thought it was just a matter of lifespan, Urahara Kisuke said, shaking his head, his face serious. So, I developed this device called an artificial corpse, something that can seal those unstable spirit particle forms. But right before you showed up, someone from the 9th Division brought me this. Naruto tilted his head, curious. Yoruchi was interested, too. Urahara Kisuke walked over to another table and picked up a black outfit. Naruto's eyes widened in disbelief. A death hako? This. Could a Soul Reaper have vanished, too? The black uniform had a very specific meaning in Soul Society. It was only worn by Soul Reapers, and almost nothing in Soul Society could threaten a Soul Reaper. Urahara Kisuke nodded, his expression grim. That's right. It's unbelievable. A Soul Reaper has disappeared. That's just not supposed to happen. I've asked Hiyori to work with the 9th Division on the investigation and intelligence gathering. She's going to be pretty tied up with this. Saragaki Hiyori, the lieutenant of the 12th Division, she was a Soul Reaper who didn't really fit in with the overall vibe of the 12th Division. She wasn't much taller than Naruto, but she had a short fuse. She was also perpetually scowling. When Naruto first met her, he thought she was from the 5th Division. That scowl was even worse than Captain Hirako Shinji's. The safety of the Suriidii comes first, Naruto said softly. If you need any help, just ask. Before he could finish, a huge surge of spiritual pressure washed over them. Everyone in the training grounds looked up immediately. The energy was familiar. It was the lieutenant of the 1st Division. The spell being cast was one they all knew, too. Binding Art number 77, Sky is Empty. A ghost path spell used to broadcast information over a wide area. Emergency Assembly. Emergency Assembly. All captains are to report to the 1st Division headquarters immediately. Captain of the 9th Division, Rokukuru Kensei, and Lieutenant of the 9th Division, Kubu Nanbai's spiritual pressures have disappeared. Repeat, urgent assembly. In the training grounds, 3 captain-level figures stood up immediately. Naruto, get back to the 13th Division headquarters, quick, Yoruchi said, her tone serious, waving him off. Something big is going down. A captain's spiritual pressure has disappeared. A terrifying enemy may have invaded Soul Society. Naruto nodded. Understood. He sheathed his blade and vanished in a flash. Yoruchi and Tensai left. 2. Urahara Kisuke went upstairs, worried, but Saragaki Hiyori had already left. 1st Division headquarters, things were serious, but the captain commander's expression was unchanged, just like always, his voice was steady. Until yesterday, this was just a series of incidents in Rukongai. Now, it's a direct act of defiance against the Godai 13. I will send 6 people to investigate. Captain of the 3rd Division, Hobashiro Juro, Captain of the 5th Division, Mako Hirako, and Captain of the 7th Division, Rate Keikawa. Those 3 are to depart immediately for the location of the incident. 2nd Division, notify Uzumaki Naruto, 3rd seat of the 13th Division. Upon notification, he is to proceed to the location immediately. An unexpected name echoed among the captains. Naruto Uzumaki, that prodigy from the 13th Division. Ikawa Luowu frowned. But he's only a 3rd seat. Fengiela Juro's expression didn't change. Urahara Kisuke reacted instantly. Captain Commander, let me replace Naruto. I'm his captain, and he's one of my men. Captain Yamamoto cut him off. No. Urahara Kisuke started to protest. Siphonjaiwan Yei said sharply, don't get so worked up. Calm down. You're being ridiculous, Kisuke. Hirako Mako grinned, his face twisted in a mocking expression. You're acting like a mother hen who's lost her chicks. If you don't trust the member you selected, then you don't even believe the boy, Naruto. He arched his back and tilted his head, making his sarcastic face even uglier. Naruto is a well-known blade. But no matter how good the blade, it must kill the enemy to prove its achievement. Isn't now the time to point your sword at the enemy? Captain Yamamoto slammed his cane on the ground and said decisively, the aforementioned individuals, move out. Chapter 45 Appetizers and Side Dishes, please read and vote. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 45, Appetizers and Strong Dishes, please read, please vote. Urahara Kisuke glanced at the captain of Squad 13, hoping for backup, but Jushiro Yukitake just smiled and shook his head, agreeing with the commander-in-chief's orders. Naruto was strong, a skilled swordsman, and his Kido had improved tremendously. He was a rare, well-rounded talent. Gunohana Retsu might be stronger, and replaceable, but as captain of the 4th Division, her responsibilities were too important for her to leave. Suriidai didn't have a better candidate than Naruto right now. Yukitake believed in his team, especially Naruto, but something else worried him. Did the commander think the captain of Squad 9 was already a lost cause? Was that why he was so eager to promote Naruto? Captain Yamamoto continued with the assignments. For the Special Operations Force dealing with the missing souls, he'd planned to send the captain and lieutenant of the Onmitsukido. But Kairaku Shunsui suggested replacing the head warden with Lisa Yadamaru, lieutenant of the 8th Division. The 6 support squad members were finally confirmed. The remaining squads would prepare for the possibility of escalation and defend the Suriidai. Back at Squad 13 HQ, Shiba Heian was ready to tackle squad business with Naruto. Suddenly, a black shadow dropped from above. The figure was clad in a tight-fitting shihakusho, the signature uniform of the 2nd Division Stealth Force. Uzumaki Naruto, 3rd seat of Squad 13, the figure said immediately after landing. You are ordered to immediately provide support at the location where the captain of the 9th Squad's spiritual pressure disappeared. Naruto was stunned. Me? Understood. Let's go. He looked at Shiba Heian, the black-haired man looked grave and ruffled his hair. Think you want to come along too? It's time for Naruto to stand on his own. Stay safe, and be careful about everything. Naruto grinned and vanished. Rukongai, District 6, outside the city, the moonlight cast an eerie glow through the sparse woods, a chaotic burst of spiritual pressure filled the air, a heavy, deathly silence. Hiyori's ragged breathing was painfully loud as she fled. She was pushing herself as hard as she could, but with her injuries, she was already at her limit. Her pursuer had arrived. A burst of spiritual pressure heralded the arrival of a huge figure that crashed to the ground. Hiyori twisted awkwardly, barely dodging. A crater exploded, sending smoke and dust swirling. Within the crater, a tall, blurry figure emerged, its eyes burning like lamps. Particles of dust illuminated the beams of light from those eyes, which locked onto Hiyori, the hunter stalking its prey. It vanished again, without a sound. Hiyori gritted her teeth. She tried to move, but her body felt twisted, and the oppressive spiritual pressure pinned her down. She couldn't seem to move. At the last moment, a sword flashed, deflecting the attack. Hiyori looked up to see a white figure standing protectively before her. A wave of relief washed over her, but as the person turned, the familiar scent vanished instantly. Hirako Shinji made a face. Are you nuts? Why aren't you drawing your sword? Hiyori stared ahead. You're the crazy one. Take a good look. How can I draw my sword? What? Hirako Shinji looked forward. The smoke and dust settled, and the pale moonlight illuminated the creature before him, revealing its skeletal form. Its face was covered by a mask, and cylindrical bone spurs protruded from its back. It looked like a hollow, but it wore a captain's Hiyori over a Shinigami uniform. The numbers 69 were tattooed on the skin beneath its ribs and on its lower abdomen. All the details screamed one thing. Shinji's mind blanked for a moment as a name escaped his lips. Kensei. That he was part of an advance team sent to investigate the missing souls in Rukongai. Rokujiro Kensei, the captain of the 9th Division. He couldn't believe it. His former teammate had transformed into such a monstrous figure. The other two captains, along with their lieutenants and the head Kido practitioner, landed immediately. They were equally stunned, but they had no time to process it. They engaged Rokujiro Kensei, who was rampaging without reason, and the 9th Division's Lieutenant Mashiro Kuna, who had also lost her mind. But just as they began to get the upper hand, a stream of white, viscous fluid suddenly spewed from Hiyori's face. She was too badly injured to resist. The mucus instantly hardened into a mask, and she lost her mind like Kensei, swinging her blade at Hirako Shinji. The blade seemed to carry some kind of deadly infectious virus, infecting others and turning them into bone faces. Not far away in the woods, 3 figures stood openly, watching the scene unfold without being noticed. Lord Aizen, they've all turned into hollows. Why aren't you stepping in? Asked Ikemura Jin, a silver-haired kid who'd just been promoted to the 5th Division. His eyes narrowed. He turned and looked up at the man standing in the center. Aizen Sosuke smiled, a hint of anticipation in his voice. They're just appetizers. The real main course hasn't arrived yet. No need to rush the meal. Ikemura Jin whispered, main course? Uzumaki Naruto. Are you hesitant? Aizen Sosuke lowered his head, his eyes hidden in shadow, and asked in an ambiguous tone. Ikemura Jin immediately dismissed the notion. Not at all. It's just that I didn't expect Lord Aizen to be on such good terms with him. Aizen Sosuke raised his head and smiled. Sometimes, closeness isn't about affection. Hunters always try to get close to their prey. He sensed a spiritual pressure approaching rapidly. It was the main course he'd been waiting for. Naruto landed. He stared at the scene before him in disbelief. The captain of the 9th Division, Kensei Rokujiro, whom he'd met a few times but didn't know well, had turned into a monster, just like himself after a tailed beast transformation, losing his mind and attacking others. Hirako Shinji was propped up on the ground, a mess, with a bone-white, sticky fluid oozing from his face, struggling to contain it. The captain of the 7th Division, Love Kawa, the captain of the 3rd Division, rose. Otaribashi, and the lieutenant of the 8th Division, Lisa Yatamaru, who always followed behind Kayaraka Shunsui, were in the same condition as Hirako Shinji, but their control was weaker, and they were barely managing to contain the bone fluid on their faces. "What's going on?" he asked. "Get out of here." Hirako Shinji, hearing the familiar voice, looked up. "Be careful. Don't let any of their attacks hit you. Go back and tell the captain. This is a hollow." He couldn't finish the sentence. A moment of distraction allowed the bone fluid to find a weakness, and it stirred restlessly, growing stronger. "Captain Shinji, I'll take you back," Naruto said through gritted teeth. "Captain Kisuke will definitely find a way. Leave." Rokujiro Kensei was already lost. Was he supposed to let these people, these friends, degenerate into monsters? He made a hand seal and mobilized his spiritual power. Vajra-seal, dozens of golden chains erupted from behind him, flying out to bind Rokujiro Kensei, who was charging toward him. Limbs, torso, waist, and abdomen. He was tightly restrained and pinned to the ground. The vice-captain of the Kido Corps, Hachijin Ashoda, who was fortunate enough not to have been attacked, warned, "Be careful. They're incredibly strong. Even the level 63 binding spell can't hold him." Naruto gritted his teeth, struggling to maintain the seal. Rokujiro Kensei's restless spiritual pressure struggled and twisted, pushing the diamond chains to their breaking point, producing a series of crackling sounds. If he hadn't released it, he would only be 4th level spiritual power, which was less than the captains who were at least 3rd level spiritual power. But this wasn't the biggest problem. The chaotic spiritual pressure was restless. There was a sound of rushing wind, and the masked Hiyori, with the narrow horns on her head, charged forward, swinging her sword. Judging from her height, it was Hiyori. Hirako Shinji's words rang in his ears. "Don't get hit by their attacks." Though he hadn't finished, the meaning was clear. If he got hit, he would probably end up like them. Naruto released the seal and dodged in a flash. Speed was his strength. Hiyori's sword missed, but Rokujiro Kensei used the opportunity to break free and charged like a madman, thanks to Shinto Taiyang, Faith Poisoning, and Guhaoyang for the rewards. Chapter 46 Nine-tailed Ashura. Please read and vote. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 46, Nine-tailed Ashura. Please read, please vote. Naruto should be grateful they've all lost their minds. No tactics, just raw power. They aren't complicating things by using their swords in any fancy way, but even with that, the captain and vice-captain's centuries of experience, countless battles, and the fighting instincts ingrained in them are pushing him to his limit. He can't get hit, and he has to find a way to seal them. What a freakin' headache. As Naruto dodged, Hirako Shinji managed to raise his head. The bone mask covered most of his face. One eye was dark and empty, his mind gone, but the other still held on to a sliver of his humanity, clinging to that rationality. He yelled with his last ounce of strength, "Naruto, if you can seal us. Don't worry about cutting off our arms or legs. Don't be a damn coward. If you can't, just get out of here. Don't feel bad for us and get yourself killed too." Before he could finish, the bone fluid flowed and completely sealed his face and his remaining sanity. Hirako Shinji went down. His mask was stark white, eerily evil, heartbreaking, yet almost sacred. Naruto gritted his teeth and raised his blade high. Rage, pain, fear, depravity. Heed the cries and bloom. Demon Fox 9 tails, that the chakra cloak enveloped him, and 6 tails whipped around. He took the hit from the blade. White bones began to grow on his arms and face, just like these hollowed-out people. He even looked more twisted and grotesque, but the color of his bones was different. The faces and bones of these hollowed-out people were deathly still. The exoskeleton on Naruto's body glowed white, almost as if flesh and blood was about to emerge, but it didn't change much. The number of people surrounding him increased, and he was getting hit from all sides, making his life a living hell. Relying on shadow clones as bait and the speed of his flash step, he managed to avoid any serious injuries. But that was it. This was the best Naruto could do right now. He couldn't find an opening to seal these people. Even if a shadow clone bought him enough time to perform the Vajra seal, the second they killed the clone, they'd be right back on him, wasting all his efforts. "Uzumaki-sensei," someone called out to him. Naruto looked over. it was Vice Captain Abarai Renji, covering his arm and panting, but his expression was resolute. Get out of here. This is beyond what we can handle. Let the other captains handle it. Naruto gritted his teeth. Leave. They had all become hollowed, even the vice-captain had fallen, 7 hollow captains and vice-captains, he was the only one left with his mind intact. The more enemies, the more pressure he felt. If he stayed any longer, he'd be injured for sure, but, these were his teammates, seniors who cared about him. Naruto clenched his fists, the false reputation of being a genius was crushed at that moment. Power, he needed more power. 6 tails wasn't enough, he needed something stronger. Should he try to become a 7-tail? But that wasn't a real game changer, it wouldn't seal the people in front of him, and there was a huge risk of losing control. Call my name. A voice suddenly echoed in his ear, a mature and steady male voice. Naruto was stunned. Who was talking? There was obviously no one around who was still saying, "Call my name." Then another voice, different from the first, immature and urgent, like a little kid. Naruto dodged an attack, lowering his head to look at the other sword on his waist. The voices were coming from it. The 2 voices called out again, no longer chaotic, but clear and distinct, 1 sentence each. They spoke 2 names, their own names. Naruto reached out and grabbed the hilt of the sword, took a deep breath, and looked determined. Not far from the forest, Ikamaru Jin exclaimed. Is that Uzumaki's 3 seats first release? It really looks like a hollow. No wonder Aizen values him so much. Aizen Sosuke smiled slightly. His light shines brighter than 7 years ago. Jin, do you know? Gems need to be polished before they become beautiful. Ikamaru Jin didn't reply, he had a fake smile plastered on his face, staring ahead, his fists clenched tightly in his sleeves, his pupils dilating. Naruto stood in the air and sheathed his first sword. He pulled the other one from his lower abdomen and held it in his left hand, matching the blade in his right. He can't hold on any longer. Is he going to give up? Ikamaru Jin wondered aloud. Aizen Sosuke shook his head. He stared at the other sword with curiosity. He sensed something already. Naruto raised both swords, his expression firm. That weak but eager voice made him feel connected, but right now, he needed stronger power. If it was a double-edged blade, then he'd use it. Spiritual pressure surged and radiated outwards. He began to chant, a different release phrase than before. Howling and wailing, singing of mercy, and the cycle of anger. The dark red sword pulsed with spiritual pressure, and the red velvet ribbon glowed with golden light. The familiar sword changed its form, shortening from a long tachi to a kodachi that was only about 2/3 the length. The hilt had 2 circles like a whirlpool. The whole body was golden and dazzling, and the hilt was decorated with a black tomo symbol. Deep within Naruto's mind, at the end of the underground waterway, the Nine-tails suddenly opened its eyes and stood up, its massive body filled with disbelief and shock. This power, why did it sense this energy? He should have died over 800 years ago, now he was suddenly appearing on this kid. Was it the power of that thing called Zanpakuto? Hirako Shinji and Mugiuruma Kensei closed in. Naruto gritted his teeth, looking at them, calling out the names of the 2 swords. Nine-tailed Ashura. The combined power of the 2 swords brought about incredible changes in his body. The tailed beast's power poured out and enveloped him. It was no longer the evil, hideous dark red, but a translucent gold that shimmered like sunlight. It wrapped around Naruto tightly, for more arms grew symmetrically, a 6-armed golden figure wielding 2 swords, divine and radiant. Naruto swung his sword and slashed at the 2 people who rushed at him. His other 2 hands flashed, forming a seal, working together. Vajra seal. It was even more powerful than his previous attempt at the technique. Larger and thicker golden chains surged forth, whipping Hiyori, who attacked from the left. They bound her and smashed her into the ground. The chanting didn't stop. The thundering chariot, the gap of the spinning wheel. This thing has light gathering and splitting into 6. The 61st way of binding, the 6-stick light prison. The direction pointed to by his last 2 hands was the vice-captain of the 9th Division, Mugiuruma Kensei. 6 huge golden pieces flew out, sticking into his torso, forcibly holding him in place. In the woods. The other sword has been released. Aizen Sosuke watched, his eyes gleaming. The power of Kido and Jutsu has increased so much. This is beyond what his current spiritual pressure should allow. The second sword enhances Kido. Ikamaru Jin smiled and continued, he's becoming more interesting. Lord Aizen, I want to keep him. Aizen Sosuke shook his head, smiling gently, but his tone was cold and ruthless. The strongest food is to be eaten. If it's left on the table, it will rot and taint everything. Yes, please do. On his other side, the blind man with the five-pointed star afro nodded and agreed immediately. Yes, Lord Aizen. He wore a white sleeveless haori, but it wasn't the mark of a captain. The words Muguruma 9th Division were printed on the back, still clearly visible. It was the special attack uniform of the 9th Division, thanks to Huanyi Bai Yixing, book friend with the last number 0851, and book friend with the last number 4117 for their tips. Starting tomorrow, I will update both chapters at 12 noon. Scratching my head, no one likes to separate them. Chapter 47. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not looking at in flowers, please read. Please vote. Dong Xian tried to sneak up, quiet as a ghost. Nobody saw him coming, a silent ghost, a shadow, a sliver of moonlight. He crept up behind Naruto, sword raised high. Inside Naruto, Nine-Tails bared its teeth. It sensed a presence approaching, not strong, but filled with raw, undisguised malice. The sword crackled with chaotic energy, similar to what Naruto was already fighting. Naruto remained oblivious. Ashura wrapped around Nine-Tails, making it roar, "Kid, watch your back." Almost instantly, instinct kicked in. Naruto trusted the warning without looking. He threw his hands behind him, abandoning his chant. Binding spell number 39, round gate fan. A golden, rapidly spinning circular fan materialized between his palms. The sword struck it with a clang, the impact sending it careening away. Naruto spun around. He saw nothing, felt nothing. It was baffling. Where had the attack come from? Who had done it? Only the feedback from the clash of spiritual power confirmed Nine-Tails' warning. What was that? Naruto asked. Nine-Tails sneered, "Can't you sense it, kid?" Naruto shook his head, silently conveying, "Nope." His eyes narrowed. He couldn't sense the assailant about to sneak attack him again. So, this was the source of the disappearances in Rakongai, the reason the captains and lieutenants were in this state. Creepy, no wonder even the captains had fallen victim. Behind you, to the right, Nine-Tails reluctantly warned again. Naruto obeyed. The adamantine sealing chains continued to restrain Rokuri Kensai and Heiko Mako, but he freed his arms, swung his sword, chanted a spell, and attacked in that direction. Dongxian tried to dodge. Nine-Tails warned him again. In the woods, Ikamaru Jin smirked, his voice falsely apologetic, laced with a sinister tone. "Oh, that's not good. Looks like he spotted Dongxian. Have the three Uzumaki seats already figured out Aizen Sanpakudo?" Aizen Sosuke remained silent, a smile fixed on his face as he watched Naruto. His sword was named Mirror Flower, Water Moon. Its abilities weren't what he displayed at the Soul Reaper Academy. The water-type release was just a smokescreen. Its true power was complete hypnosis. Anyone who had seen this sword with their own eyes would have their five senses, including their spiritual pressure perception, controlled by Aizen Sosuke, leaving them vulnerable to manipulation and unable to discern reality. It was powerful, but not perfect. Nothing ever was. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, you'd be immune, then you wouldn't be tricked by the reflection. Aizen's gaze shifted to Tozenkan, who had easily evaded Naruto's attack. His subordinate was the only one who could resist the hypnosis of Mirror Flower, Water Moon. Not because he was strong, but because he was blind. He saw nothing, even if he was a blind man whose perception was the same as that of a normal person except for being invisible, or even sharper. "Jin, I thought you'd understand that appearances can be deceiving if you stayed by my side." Aizen said softly. "Naruto hasn't figured out my ability yet. His attacks are so slow, I could dodge them in my sleep. There's something inside Naruto that hasn't seen my release. But it was sealed in Naruto's body. What could it be?" Aizen adjusted his glasses. Ikamaru Jin was about to speak when he noticed Aizen suddenly look up and to the left. He followed the gaze. A surge of spiritual pressure was approaching. "We have company," Aizen murmured, but as the figures landed, Aizen stared at one cloaked in black and smiled. He wasn't an uninvited guest after all. he lived up to his reputation as the captain of the 12th Division, inventing an artifact that could nullify one's own perception. Naruto beamed and looked up. The incoming spiritual pressure was familiar and trustworthy, the great Kido chief, Tensai Tsukabashi, and seeing the man beside him, invisible to others but clearly visible beneath the black cloak, made him even happier. Great Kido chief. Captain Kisuke. Urahara Kisuke pulled back his hood, his eyes darting back and forth between the restrained and unconscious Soul Reapers. He was visibly shaken. How could this happen? Be careful. Naruto warned, ignoring the question. There's an invisible enemy around. The two instantly went on alert. In the woods, Aizen whispered, "Yes, come back." His voice carried. Aizen-sama, I can, Tozen started to reply. I said, Aizen lowered his voice, come back. Tozen flinched and retreated behind Aizen. Yes, forgive my arrogance. Aizen narrowed his eyes, looking ahead. Naruto was the first course, Urahara Kisuke was the second. Nine-tails had gone silent. Naruto nudged it. Nine-tails grinned. Kid, that guy ran off. Naruto relayed the news to the newcomers. An invisible enemy is responsible for their holification. Urahara Kisuke frowned. Sparse woods, dim moonlight, 8 mindless Soul Reapers wearing bone masks. It was chilling. He realized he wasn't the only one pursuing that research. Captain Kisuke, do you know what's happening to them? Naruto's voice rose. Does that mean they can be saved? They've already undergone the transformation. Urahara Kisuke nodded, then frowned and lowered his voice. We don't have the necessary equipment here. If we were back at headquarters. His disappointment was clear. Time, environment, equipment, they had none of it. Then if we can maintain their current state until we return to the 12th Division, Tensai Tsukabashi said, there is enough equipment in the squad room, so they can be saved, right? Urahara Kisuke was surprised. Maintain their current state, that he didn't deny the possibility. Is that even possible? Naruto asked, equally surprised. Tensai Tsukabashi nodded, his expression serious. He raised his hands. I will use 2 forbidden techniques. I must ask that you excuse us for the time being, Lord Urahara and Uzumaki-sansei. Please, pretend you hear or see nothing. How they will return to the 12th Division. Please vouch for it in front of the captain. Uzumaki. Naruto didn't hesitate. Yeah, no problem. Spiritual pressure surged around the great Kido chief, the spell began, the fabric of spacetime shimmered, and they vanished. In the woods, Ikemara Jin murmured, Xianyao ran off. A heavy feeling settled in his stomach. Aizen shook his head. Jin, let's go back. Aizen-sama, you're just going to let them go. Ikemara Jin followed Aizen. Aizen tilted his head back. People think flowers growing on cliffs are the most beautiful. Because people stop at the edge. Instead of taking a step into the sky, like those fearless flowers. Don't you think Naruto is a particularly beautiful flower? Chapter 48, Arrest and Caution. Please read and vote. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The 12th Division headquarters. The teleport made Naruto a little dizzy. He shook his head and looked around. The guys who'd been frozen in time and held back by his seal reappeared with the ground beneath them. Urahara Kisuke took off his coat and explained to them, holification. It's what happened when I was researching ways to boost Soul Reaper power. I figured out a way to. It's like they've been destroyed by the boundary between a Soul Reaper and a hollow. He reached into his lab and pulled out a gemstone that glowed blue-black. I thought I was the only one working on this. Guess someone else in the Soul Society's been trying it too. And they're using regular souls and captains as test subjects. Tensai, I need your help. I want to use this thing to save Hirako and the others. Urahara looked up at Naruto. Naruto, be careful. Report this to Captain Commander Yamamoto. You'll be safer with him. This, invisible enemy, might be after me. Or maybe it's you. Naruto nodded, looking at the frozen, unconscious figures, and gave a firm nod. he headed back to the 1st Division barracks. He reported the situation to Captain Commander Yamamoto. He explained the invisible enemy situation. Of course, he didn't go into the whole holification thing. He just said that several captains had been poisoned and injured and were sent to the 12th Division for treatment. I see, Yamamoto said, his face unreadable. He agreed to let Naruto stay, the 1st Division dormitory. It was a completely different vibe from Squad 13. Naruto couldn't sleep, so he sat on the porch, staring at the dead, dry landscape bathed in moonlight. Kurama, why did you suddenly warn me? He thought of something and talked to the fox inside him. He'd been with Kurama for almost 10 years, their relationship had definitely improved, but there was still a wall between them. Naruto couldn't get over his parents. As for Kurama, he hated sealing jutsu, and especially in the past year, he'd been cursing Urahara constantly. Do I need a reason to warn you? Kurama snapped, baring his teeth. I just think that thing's gonna mess with me. It's an evil power. He paused, then said casually, consider it a thank you for keeping me happy. Those guys who left Konoha made a good choice. But if it were me, we'd destroy Konoha and kill them all. Naruto was silent. He took out the Ashura sword and placed it on his knee. Kurama, you're not who you seem to be. Kurama froze, his body stiff, and a little angry. Kid! Are you questioning my guts? Naruto shook his head and put his hand on the scabbard. I just have a feeling you're not. The Ashura sword seems to give me more than just strength. Besides, I'm starting to feel something awakening inside me. It's letting me sense your emotions. He just tried connecting with the sword, but nothing. It wasn't like Kurama, who was just resistant to communicating. It was something else entirely. The powerful force called Ashura remained silent, and the weak voice that was drawing him closer was wrapped in Ashura's power, seemingly in a deep sleep, like a baby sleeping peacefully after a good feed, without crying or fussing. Kid! Kurama was clearly agitated. Naruto smiled. Ashura's power is bigger than you think, Kurama said softly. I don't know why yet. But be good to it. Naruto was surprised. You know Ashura's power? Kid, heh, Kurama sneered. You're from the Uzumaki clan. Ashura's your ancestor. Ancestor? Naruto stroked the sword. Inside, Kurama curled up, head against his tail, like a real fox. He was still wondering, why was Ashura's power showing up in this kid? But thinking about it, this Uzumaki Naruto was kinda like Ashura. Uzumaki Naruto? Kurama said the name, thinking of the other blonde guy, this father and son. Maybe they weren't so bad after all. He tilted his head awkwardly. He wanted to know his name. Naruto didn't sleep. Every time he drifted off, he saw Hirako and the others with their faces being eaten away by masks. He wondered, could Urahara save them? Early next morning, Naruto hurried out of the 1st Division barracks. He went to the entrance of the 12th Division, but he couldn't get in. The place was guarded by the special forces. Grim Reapers in tight-fitting clothes and masks stood guard. Naruto. Someone called his name. Naruto looked over and saw Yoruichi Shihoin, wearing a captain's haori and looking more serious than he'd ever seen her. Sis Yi, he said, ready to ask what was going on. Yoruichi shook her head. Not here. Come with me. She took Naruto to a high tower next to the headquarters. Why is the special forces here? Naruto asked. Yoruichi whispered, orders from Central 46. Arrest Urahara Kisuke, captain of the 12th Division, and Tessai Tsukabashi, head of the Kido Corps, for treason. Naruto's eyes went wide. Central 46 was the highest court in Soul Society. They judged any crime committed by a Soul Reaper, but that charge, treason? Arrest? It hit him hard. I didn't tell the captain commander about Captain Kisuke, Naruto said, taking a deep breath. I just said that Captain Hirako and the others had been poisoned and I'd sent them to Division 12 for treatment. Yoruichi forced a smile and patted Naruto's shoulder. I don't blame you. I believe you. You and the invisible enemy were there that night. Naruto clenched his fist. Who reported it to Central 46? Yoruichi nodded. At least we know something good. The invisible enemy is also a soul reaper, and they're in the Konoha I 13. Naruto bowed his head. After a moment, he looked up. What about Captain Kisuke and Captain Tensai? How will Central 46 deal with them? Yoruchi looked into the distance. I'm going to tell you the worst-case scenario. Naruto. She put her hand on Naruto's shoulder and then on his head. Be careful. Kisuke said that you and he are the biggest threats to the invisible enemy. If he's been dealt with and you haven't. The invisible enemy probably has other plans for you. Be careful. Naruto looked into Yoruchi's golden eyes, his heart sank. He wanted to ask about Urahara and Tensai. Why was she talking about him? What was Sisyi planning? Chapter 49, Escape and Duty. Please read and vote. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content. Seeing the confusion in Naruto's eyes, Shifenjuan smiled and continued talking about Urahara. Kisuke. Room 46 is a bunch of hardheads, even more stubborn than Captain Yamamoto. They're being incredibly harsh about this. The verdict's already decided. They sent the Criminal Investigation Unit from the 2nd Division, not the Gentler Patrol Corps or the Konoha I 13. Naruto clenched his fists. I never got an order to cooperate with any investigation. Yoruchi ruffled his hair. That's what worries me most. They don't need you. Naruto stared, disbelieving. He finally understood what Yoruchi meant. Central Room 46 doesn't need testimony or cooperation. It's not an oversight on their part. They're just itching to pin the crime on Urahara. Kisuke. They can't wait to deal with those captains and vice-captains who were hollowified. Are there really people like that in the Soul Society? He asked. Those bloodsuckers only care about their own meal. Yoruchi nodded slightly, looking into the distance. They need a result. And the truth doesn't necessarily matter to them. That's why I hate nobles. Naruto clenched his fists even tighter. Are you just going to let Captain Kisuke and the others get railroaded? Yoruchi cut him off. Of course not. If the worst really happens, I'll break them out. But if that happens, we'll probably have to ditch the Soul Society. Without hesitation, Naruto said, Sister Yoruchi, I want in. No. Yoruchi immediately refused. Naruto protested, I freed the second sword last night. I won't slow you down, Sister Yoruchi. I've got the power. It's not about strength. Yoruchi turned to him, a bright smile on her face. It's about who you are. I may not like being head of the Shifenjuan family. But right now, it's super useful. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The Soul Society is ruled by the nobility. Room 46 is handpicked by the nobles. If I snatch Urahara, they'll be furious, but that's it. But you're different. Naruto looked down. Little fox, stay put, Shifenjuan. Yoruchi said softly. There's an enemy out there, I don't know who, or what he looks like. But the Soul Society is the safest place for you. This guy's hiding in the shadows. Using Room 46. That proves he's scared of someone. A name flashed in Naruto's mind immediately. Captain, Yoruchi confirmed, yeah, stick with the captain. You're safest with us. I understand, Sister Yoruchi, Naruto said quietly. Yoruchi gave him a hard pat on the head. Don't give me that look. Like I said, this is only if the worst happens. And even if it does. Every goodbye just means a better reunion is coming. We'll be back when this invisible enemy finally shows his face. Naruto forced a smile. I just never thought this kind of crap would happen in the Soul Society. He had a good impression of the Soul Society. Everyone he'd met had been good people, gentle and kind, but this whole thing, it's like someone spilled a bunch of sewage, polluting everything. Wherever there's sunshine, there's shadow, Shifenjuan. Yoruchi said, taking her hand away and looking out at the Siriidii. Light and dark clash, but they also go hand in hand. The hotter the sun, the smaller the shadows get. But no matter how bright the light is, they're always there. Naruto followed her gaze. Become someone like the captain. She smiled softly. He's the son of the Konoha 13. He shields us. Be the light that makes shadows disappear. Naruto nodded and was quiet for a moment. Do you or Captain Kasuke have any idea who this invisible Shinigami might be? I'm staying in the Soul Society. I'll smoke him out. Sifenjai. When Yoruichi hesitated, she glanced at Naruto, then she spoke carefully. Hingzi told us something before. Watch out for Aizen Soyasuke. An unexpected name. Naruto was stunned. He pictured that gentle, kind face. Why him? His voice was distant. Shifenju. When Yoruichi shook her head. You have to decide for yourself, Naruto. The wind rustled around them. Kyubi yawned, bored. Naruto left and went back to Squad 13. That afternoon, he heard the news. The worst-case scenario Yoruichi feared had come to pass. The Central 46 announced that great spiritual arts master Tsukabashi Tensai was punished for unauthorized use of forbidden arts and was to be imprisoned in a third detention cell, Urahara Kasuke, on the charge of researching and practicing taboo arts, persecuting colleagues and causing serious injury. Was to be stripped of all spiritual power and banished to the human world for all time. As for the 8 captains and vice-captains who had been hollowified, Central 46 treated them with extreme cruelty and regarded them as hollows. And how do Shinigami deal with hollows? There's only one way, execution. And during the trial, the current head of the Sifenjaiwan family, captain of the 2nd Division, Sifenjaiwan Yoruichi, broke in and kidnapped the criminals Urahara Kasuke, Tsukabashi Tensai and others. The captain commander was furious. He sent the captain of the 8th Division, Kairaku Shunsui, to hunt down this group of outlaws. Later, in the 13th Division dormitory. The old man's a real pain, Kairaku Shunsui muttered, pouring himself some sake. So this is what you want me to do? He didn't look happy, not that he had any complaints against his mentor, but the vice-captain of the 8th Division, Yadamaru Lisa, was among those who had fled. I'm sorry, Captain Shunsui, Naruto said apologetically. Kairaku Shunsui was taken aback, then realized what Naruto was talking about. He shook his head and chuckled. Don't worry about it, Naruto. I'm not blaming you. You did great. Without you, I'm afraid little Lisa would never have made it back to the Soul Society. Yukitake Jushiro picked up a glass of water and took a sip. Speaking of which, I bet the captain commander is really worried. It's been a long time since the Soul Society has had such a serious manpower shortage. Kairaku Shunsui nodded. The captains of the 2nd and 12th Divisions had escaped. The captains of the hollowified 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th Divisions were gone, and then there's the 10th Division, which was already empty. Right now, most of the positions in the Konoha 13 were vacant. 7 captains, Kairaku Shunsui said, putting the cup back on the table. I thought the old man was moving too fast, pushing Naruto to become a captain last night. I didn't see this coming. He really is forward-thinking. Speaking of Naruto, have you decided which squad you want to captain? Naruto blinked, then answered honestly, the captain commander told me he was thinking about letting me take the 10th Division. Like he even had a say in the matter. That was before. Kairaku Shunsui shook his head. Back then, there was only one spot open. Now there are 7. The 10th Division isn't right for you. I doubt the old man will let you go that easily now. Naruto asked respectfully, what do you suggest, Captain Shunsui? Chapter 50 Captain of the 7th Division Uzumaki Naruto, please read and vote. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 50, Captain Uzumaki Naruto of the 7th Division, read vote. Kairaku Shunsui began, explaining things slowly. The Konoha 13 each have their own duties, and right now, there are 7 captain spots open. The 2nd Division, the Covert Ops, is basically the eyes and ears of the nobles. It's always been a Sifenjaiwan family thing. Even with Yoruichi doing what she did, that position will stay within the Sifenjaiwan family, likely filled by another member or someone from a lower noble family tied to them. Naruto figured as much. Those old money nobles, especially the top 5, mostly care about power, except for the Shiba clan and Yoruichi herself. That leaves 6 captain positions. The 3rd is support, the 5th is rescue, the 7th is the inner court guard, the 9th handles prisons, the 10th patrols, and the 12th division monitors disturbances in the real world, Hueco Mundo, and the Soul Society, plus they're all about tech development. Kairaku Shunsui took another swig of sake, his face getting redder. The 10th division's got a tough job, patrolling Siriidii and Rukongai. You're still young, Naruto, and if we can avoid it, the old man would want you to spend time getting stronger. You're a good kid. So, the 9th division is off the table, too. You need a real hard ass for interrogating prisoners. Naruto ran through the options, 3rd, 5th, or 7th. He ruled out the 12th. Tech development's not really my thing. Speaking of which, the 5th division isn't a great fit either, Yukitake Jushiro said gently, stopping Kairaku Shunsui from refilling his cup. Naruto looked at him. Because of Sosuke Aizen, that he was thinking about the man in Yoruchi's words. Vice Captain Aizen's really popular with the team, Yukitake nodded. Even I hear good things about him, and I don't get out much. He'll probably apply for the captaincy himself. Kairaku Shunsui poured some water into his cup, took a sip, and grimaced at the watery taste. I actually saw him the night of the incident. Right outside the 5th Division headquarters. Naruto tilted his head. You've met him, Captain Shunsui. Kairaku Shunsui nodded. But that night, Vice Captain Aizen seemed different. Maybe I was just worried about Lisa, he continued. I don't know him that well. Maybe I was just reading too much into it. Different, sure, Uncle Shunsui acts all carefree, but he's still the captain of the 8th Division, an intelligence expert, so his gut feeling is worth something. Naruto frowned. He thought of something. In the ninja world, transformation and clone techniques make it easy to impersonate someone, but in Soul Society, he hadn't seen anything similar. He felt like he was onto something, but couldn't quite grasp what it was. Anyway, forget about it, Kairaku Shunsui said, looking sadly at his empty wine glass. Team 3 or 7, Naruto? Which one do you prefer? That he also wrote off the 12th division. Naruto was too much of a straight-up genius, not like the head-scratching type like Urahara Kisuke. Which division should I lead if I want to hunt down Urahara Kisuke and the others? Naruto asked seriously. I want that assignment. Kairaku Shunsui smiled. Yukitake Jushiro shook his head, smiling. You can take that assignment no matter which team you're captain of. Naruto looked surprised. The old man gave me this task instead of the 2nd division to protect the Godii 13 and the Siriidi's reputation. Kairaku Shunsui explained patiently. He looked out at the lake rippling in the wind. Miss Yoichi and the others are guilty, plain and simple. Even if the old man favors you, his hands are tied. But agreeing on the surface doesn't mean you can't fight back in other ways. Like now. He knows I'm hiding out with Jushiro, drinking, and the worst he'll do is yell at me. Naruto nodded, thoughtfully. So you disagree with the sentence too, Captain? There are other doubts, Yukitake Jushiro added. Like the invisible enemy. Both the teachers and we want to know the truth. Naruto looked at him. His captain smiled. If you don't get it yet, you will eventually. From now on, you're on your own, Naruto. I've been protected until now. And now you're that light. Yoruchi had told him the same thing before they parted. Kairaku Shunsui sneakily poured half a glass of wine while Yukitake Jushiro wasn't looking. I don't want to deal with this crap at all. Naruto, take it over already. In that case, I'll take Division 7. Naruto nodded. A few days later, at the 1st Division headquarters. Urahara Kisuke committed crimes against the Soul Society, Captain General Yamamoto announced, his tone calm. Former captain of the 2nd Division, Shifenjuin Yoruchi, disobeyed the Central 46 and helped him escape. There are 7 captain positions currently open. 5th Division Vice Captain, Aizen Sosuke, applied for the captain's exam yesterday. Are there any recommendations for the other divisions? That he tilted his head slightly, his eyes landing on Yukitake Jushiro. the long-haired man coughed twice and raised his hand. As captain of the 13th Division, I recommend Uzumaki Naruto, former 3rd seat of the 13th Division, to be captain of the 7th Division. Kyoraku Shunsui stood up as well. As captain of the 8th Division, I recommend Uzumaki Naruto, former 3rd seat of the 13th Division, to be captain of the 7th Division. Unohana Retsu glanced at them, so the 7th Division was the final decision. She stood up and recommended Uzumaki Naruto in her own name. The remaining captains of the 6th and 11th Divisions didn't object. 1 month later, in the 13th Division dormitory, Naruto was woken up early by Shiba Heian. I thought it would take decades, but here we are, the black-haired man said, watching Naruto put on the white captain's haori. Congratulations, Captain Naruto. I'm going to miss you, Vice Captain Heian. Naruto stood in front of the mirror, looking at himself. It's not like we won't see each other again. Shiba Heian stepped forward and ruffled his hair. I've heard Vice Captain Xiaochun of the 7th Division is a good guy. That puts my mind at ease. Naruto grinned. Hey, what's that mark on your back? Shiba Heian asked, patting it gently. On the back of the captain's haori, right below the diamond-shaped 7, was a red circle with swirling black lines inside, like a whirlpool. This? Naruto turned and smiled brightly, his golden hair shining in the sun. It's the Uzumaki clan symbol, from my mom. He hadn't changed the captain's haori at all, other than adding this.